Hello and welcome. This is Lita Downs from the Center for Faculty Excellence, and I would like to welcome you to today's offering, Work-Life Imbalance, Practical Strategies for Virtual Employee Wellness. Our presenters, Dr. Miranda Griffin and Dr. Jason King, originally presented this along with Dr. April Crabble at the 2019 National Faculty Meeting in Tampa, Florida. It's great to have both Dr. Griffin and Dr. King on the line today, and at this point, I'm going to turn things over to them. Welcome.
Thank you so much. We are so excited to have you with us for Work-Life Imbalance. I am Dr. Miranda Griffin. I work within the School of Counseling. As you know, as leaders in the field of education, as well as faculty members and staff, we face so many work-related stressors. And naturally, these stressors can impact our health, our wellness, which sometimes may skew our purpose, diminish our performance, impact our satisfaction with work, and even affect our connection with others. So on today, we just want to spend some time with you to address work-life imbalance and provide you with some virtual employee wellness strategies. And before I kind of transition to allow my co-presenter, Dr. King, to introduce himself, I just want to note what Lita has already shared with you, and that is that Dr. April Crabble was also a contributing presenter to this topic when we were at the National Faculty Meeting, but she's not able to be a part of the presentation today, but her work still sustains in today's presentation. So before I give it to Dr. King, I just want to let you know what our objectives are for this session. First and foremost, we want to go over the 8 dimensions of wellness. We're going to help you with identification of signs and symptoms of work-life imbalance. We're going to look at what wellness policies exist within the university that you could be benefiting from, or that maybe your supervisees could be benefiting from, and provide you with some practical strategies that you may want to consider putting in place or passing along to your peers or supervisees. And with that said, I'd like to welcome Dr. Jason King so that he may introduce himself.
Thank you so much, Dr. Griffin. I'm excited to be with all of you at this time for us to discuss some skills and some principles in improving your overall wellness and balance. I'm in the School of Counseling and Human Services. I'm a student development coordinator, so I have the opportunity to support our master's and doctoral students as they develop some key professional dispositions that help to kind of define their professional identity as a future counselor or a counselor educator. And so I'll be sharing with you some of the research and concepts that I have found in my own counseling practice, have used with clients and have used with students and with even myself to assist in promoting health and wellness. So I'm excited to learn with you today, and we'll hear from Dr. Griffin again.
Thank you so much. So now we're going to go to our next slide. And in this next slide, the intent really is to give you a visual analogy to think about. And on the slide, it just talks about that you can't pour from an empty cup. And in this particular cup, it looks as if someone may have had tea or coffee, and there's a little residue or stain at the bottom of the cup showing that it's really dried out at this particular point. Well, if you think about yourself as that cup, and just say, for instance, the cup itself was made of a styrofoam material. When you think about yourself representing that cup, also think about a mental list of all the different tasks and responsibilities that you're juggling in any given day, not just as an employee, but as maybe a spouse, a friend, a colleague, a coworker, maybe even you're a student. Maybe you have outside employment things that you're doing outside of the work environment, but just make a mental list, if you will, of all those responsibilities that you have in a given day. Thinking about those responsibilities and you as a representation of a styrofoam cup, if you were to take a safety pin a pen or a pencil tip and make a puncture in that styrofoam cup for everything that you have to do in a given day from that mental list that's running through your head, you would probably notice that there is a lot of punctures in the cup. If you were to then pour something into that punctured cup, depending on how many punctures you have because of all the different things that you're juggling and responsible for, you would notice the flow of that substance or that liquid coming out. And it might be fast, it may be gradually coming out depending upon where those holes are and how many that you have. But with the notion that you can't pour from an empty cup, the reality is when you have all of these different tasks and responsibilities, you're not necessarily able to pour into other people, into other endeavors, into your purpose, and the goals that you have for yourself in any given day. And so it's necessary that we keep our cup filled, or we keep our cup at a substantial or ideal level to compensate for all the different ways that we pour ourselves out through tasks and responsibilities. So again, with this visual representation in mind, today we want to really talk about wellness and the strategies that you could be implementing related to self-care. When we think about each of these strategies that we're going to provide and engage you with on today, each one of them actually can serve as an insulator or almost like a putty over those punctures in the cup. So every time that you go outside and look at the sky, the sun, participate in nature, go on a run, exercise, maybe you take a break from work, and you pray or you meditate or whatever things that you already have in place to help with the balance, those things actually serve to insulate those holes that you've punctured in your cup so that you can keep the balance necessary to be of service not only to yourself but to others as you pour yourself out. And so to kind of illustrate this point a little bit more, there's some reflection questions that you can answer at a later time for yourself, but thinking about that quote, thinking about the visual analogy, what does it really mean to you? Think about when your cup has been empty, if you even recognize that it's empty, and how do you know when it's time for a refill? And so Dr. King is going to talk a little bit about this in the next slide, which is on imbalance or the burnout cycle.
Thank you so much, Dr. Griffin. I love that analogy because it helps me to visualize more how just even small stressors can add up one by one. And it's so easy for us to think that, oh, this is just a small thing. It's not that big of a deal. It's really not bothering me, not getting to me. When in reality, as it combines with others, it almost becomes exponential, and we begin to lose, our substance and our vitality as things continue to drip and then eventually, almost pour out of the cup. So on our next slide here, we present kind of a model for burnout, or how we could potentially develop a sense of imbalance in our lives. This model is not intended to be all-inclusive, not for every individual at every point in time in their life, but we hope that at least it gives you kind of a general pathway with some key milestones along the way that could stand out for you, and just give you a few more things to enhance your awareness to look out for and also to buffer. So we begin the model by looking at the top circle where it indicates you start a job. And this could be a new job. It could also just be any new assignments, tasks, duties, or responsibilities in your current position with Walden. We get excited. We want to invest, some long hours. We want to do well. We want to complete the task or the tasks, and we want to help our colleagues and to satisfy their needs, and our supervisor as well. And over time, then stress is naturally going to build up as we are continuing to invest in this job. Now, stress is not necessarily something that is problematic or is a bad thing. It depends on the level of the stress and the type of the stress. And so stress is a normal part of human life. It's part of what actually motivates us and kind of moves us forward to change and to complete things. But it can become very overwhelming if we don't have enough supports, enough outlets, and especially if we're lacking coping mechanisms for managing the stress. Then we move to the next circle here, where we begin to lose our energy, not only physically, but mentally. And even emotionally, we start to become worn down. We become less invested in the task or even our overall job and what our responsibilities are. And then very quickly we can get into a sense of frustration. And this frustration could be at ourselves because we're not satisfied with our progress. Maybe we have unhealthy expectations for ourselves, even tendencies of perfectionism. We may also become frustrated with our work colleagues. They don't understand us. They aren't accepting our ideas or not approving of the work that we're doing. Or we may feel like a supervisor is being less accepting or overly critical of our work and can add to our sense of frustration. The point is that at this point, we begin to see most everything, events and interactions from others in a negative light. And we're not able to see things as neutral or even as positive. And when we start to evaluate events and actions of others from a negative perspective, then it's real easy then to slip to the next circle, which is we just become burned out. We really don't care about anything, and we're just apathetic. Want to give up, and we may have others that may come in and support us and rebolster us and maybe remotivate us, get us excited. Maybe we have an annual performance review. But whatever it is, we maybe get re-excited and want to reinvest in it, and then begin the process of going through the same cycle as we restart that job or that duty or responsibility and then move on to the next. We can begin to repeat the cycle here of burnout. Our goal today is to give you some ideas of how to buffer and to slow down, and if not even avoid any of these pathways, and to be able to be more preventive and proactive in managing your own stress and your own burnout, so that you can create a sense of balance within your life. So with that, we want to talk about in the next slide what our needs are for wellness and why this is such an important topic, and maybe even what brings you to our workshop is that wellness is a very essential part of our physical well-being and health, and also our mental health. These two are directly related, and so the quality of our physical health can negatively impact our mental health, or can positively impact our mental health, and vice versa. And so the body and the mind are interconnected, and mental health and physical health tend to go in tandem. These concepts are so important and so powerful that if one of them again is imbalanced, it's very likely the other one is going to then be directly affected negatively as well. And sometimes that can be very subtle for us, and then it can become more stressful that we're feeling like that we're depressed or have more anxiety, and in addition we may have some physical complaints, maybe headaches or migraines, maybe upset stomach, and now we're really stressed because we have a lot going on with ourselves. And so what I like about this interconnected concept between physical health and mental health is that a lot of times we can target one of these areas and improve overall balance, and it has a spillover effect into the other area as well. Sometimes we don't necessarily need to target both physical and mental health. Sometimes we do. But sometimes we can, I guess you could say, kill two birds with one stone. And there could be kind of a ripple or domino effect as we target one of them. We invite you to just find out, how your mental and physical health interconnect, and how you might approach balancing those. Wellness is also really important because there are a lot of professions that have embedded in their ethical standards the importance of that individual, who typically may be especially licensed from a state regulatory board, that they need to be mindful of and promoting their own health and wellness. For example, in the counseling profession, Dr. Griffin and I, our ethical standards mandate this as well, so that we can provide the best counseling services to our clients, and that we can have appropriate boundaries, that we can have the effective cognitive abilities to understand our clients and to develop treatment plans and to execute appropriate interventions that are safe and that avoid risk of harm to our clients. The nursing profession is also very similar in that in their code of ethics, they require nurses to promote their health and preserve their wellness so that they can enhance their personal and professional growth, and they can be most effective as they work with their patients as well. So this is an example of just a few professions that highlight the need for wellness, because our personal, physical, and mental wellness can directly affect our relationship with others and potentially even the health and wellness of others that we interact with or that we live with. That's how powerful it can be. So with this in mind, the need for wellness, I wanted to discuss some 8 dimensions that can go along with this on our next slide. And as we review these 8 dimensions, I want to emphasize that these are all going to play a different role as far as the prominence or the importance in your own individual life. And how much these may weigh in importance in your life may also fluctuate over time. If you have changes in your life, say a new job, or you have a new child, or you go through a divorce, or you move, or some natural disaster happens in your community, 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 of these 8 dimensions may take a higher priority for you at that moment in time in your life compared to previous times in your life, and that's totally fine. It's important to understand that these 8 dimensions, as you can see in the visual diagram in the upper right-hand corner, while they overlap and are interconnected, the size of these circles will increase and will decrease at different points in our time. And so the opportunity for all of us is to find out which ones are most important at kind of this time in our life that we need to be most mindful of. So when we talk about an emotional aspect of coping here and wellness, it's the ability to understand our emotions and to properly regulate and to manage our emotions and to be able to try to keep them the best that we can in kind of moderation. It's not about avoiding emotions. We also then don't want to have excessive emotional expressions. It's about striking that balance. The second area, environmental wellness, this could relate to our environment, not only, such as a clean environment and a neighborhood, but even our own home and a sense of orderliness and cleanliness within our place of residence can be very critical to our overall wellness. Third aspect, financial security, financial independence is very essential to managing stress. Walden University offers some resources to assist with our own financial success, such as investments and retirement opportunities that are available. Savings accounts and different retirement accounts, and to look at my overall finances and needs for my family. And that's been a great resource for me to tap into at times. I've also attended some community-driven financial lectures and seminars and kind of workshops on improving financial stability and so forth. When it comes to intellectual wellness, this could include reading a book. I have a colleague who has a goal of reading at least 1 book per week. I think that's phenomenal. That they're able to commit to do that, and they actually accomplish it. Walden University offers, again, tuition reimbursement for us attending courses at another institution that can advance our intellectual tenacity and our career and even enhance our job performance here. And of course, Walden offers significant tuition discounts if we take courses from them. For occupational wellness, we need to find a sense of satisfaction in what we do, constantly navigate, difficulties, talking with our supervisor, and working out, maybe differences with our colleagues and looking for improved ways to collaborate. What I've learned is the importance of, consulting with colleagues and having open dialogue, resolving differences and misunderstandings in kind of an assertive and a prompt manner has helped me to manage any occupational stress that I've encountered. The physical aspect of wellness is important, I think, especially for all of us, considering that I think most Walden employees do work from home remotely and are probably in a chair for most of the time. So my colleagues, I'll see them in meetings. They'll be standing on a treadmill. Actually, they'll be walking on the treadmill. Others will be standing and engage in other kind of physical activities to increase their mobility and to avoid sitting in a chair all day long. And there are those office desk extensions that can rise your laptop up so that you can stand and be able to work at your desk instead of be sitting, all the time. And then our social wellness can include connecting with our neighbors, those in our community, and also then keeping, balanced and I would say probably healthy and appropriate social media connections and outlets. We need to be careful with social media because our research does indicate that it can lead to depression and anxiety and even in extreme cases, thoughts of suicide. If we're not careful in monitoring and managing, what we read, what we spend our time on, but also what kind of postings we're throwing out there and pictures as well. So be balanced with the use of social media. Finally, spiritual wellness is a broad concept. It's not limited to adherence to a certain religious belief system or practice. It's a broader sense of having a purpose and a meaning. Universe. And overall, it's our sense of finding our purpose and meaning within life. So these 8 dimensions of wellness are essential to filling up those holes in the cup that Dr. Griffin talked about earlier. They're essential to helping us develop an overall sense of balance throughout our life. And again, throughout our life, at different points in time, we're going to be challenged with focusing on different aspects of any of these 8 dimensions of wellness. So we just need to be creative and be flexible in using them. So in addition to this, I want to also provide some 7 other suggestions that comes from the counseling literature. And our next slide on stamina. This is an acronym here from Dr. Osborne, and I'll explain what the letters stand for and kind of discuss some brief examples here. In the first letter here, S, this stands for selectivity, and selectivity refers to our ability to practice intentional choice to focus in daily activities as well as long-term endeavors. It also implies that we set limits on what we can and what we can't do, setting boundaries and saying no, not taking on more than we need to, and being mindful that we're not trying to be a people pleaser, and that it's okay to say no at times for tasks and so forth. I'll share an example that in my annual performance review, not this year, but the year before, my supervisor approached me with an opportunity to expand in another area within my job capacity. And I respectfully declined that opportunity, knowing that I would not have been able to have provided the necessary time commitment to have been successful and productive with that expanded role if I were to take that on. And so I had an opportunity to probably say yes, just to look good, to sound like I'm a team player, and to satisfy, my supervisor, but I would have been saying no to my overall health and wellness. And I share that to let you know that it is okay to set boundaries, even with those who may have a position of power over us. And of course, we need to do so respectfully and I think provide some some reasons for that. But I share that to give you a sense of how I've practiced selectivity in my own job capacity here at Walden. The next part here, the T stands for temporal sensitivity. This deals with time. The understanding is that time is a commodity. It's also a perspective, and it's something that needs to be managed and manipulated well. If we look at time as something positive, something that we can control, then we're less likely to be stressed because we don't have time to do things. We're going to prioritize our time, we're going to schedule our time, and we're going to develop routines that function within time and that utilize time to leverage our talents and our resources and our abilities. And we also need to be, realistic to natural time limits, and not trying to push for the 26-hour day, for example. The next letter, A, accountability. This refers to our ability to practice our job and our work duties from kind of a theoretically guided approach, or a research-informed approach, even an ethical standards approach, or just some kind of justifiable approach. Meaning that we're not approaching our job duties and responsibilities just kind of willy-nilly and maybe just kind of what we want to do, but that we do it with intentional purpose, and that we've got some accountability behind it. And something that gives us some credibility in how we approach our job tasks and obligations. An example of this is I know of a colleague who has who works with school teachers, and a good number of these school teachers were pulling lesson plans from Pinterest for their students, and they were bypassing the accredited curriculum they were supposed to be using. This is an example of then, school teachers not practicing accountability. They're not approaching their job from some theoretically guided or research-informed accreditation standards and curriculum guideline. Okay, next on M, measurement and management in stamina. This refers to our ability to make, conscientious, careful, and even ongoing efforts to conserve and even protect the resources that we have and that we value. These could be personal characteristics that we may have, for example, leadership skills or being assertive. These could also include resources around us, certain colleagues. They could even be access to books that we have on our bookshelf, or journals that we receive every quarter because we're a member in a professional organization. So measurement and management of our resources, using them in a timely manner, and having a purpose and intentionality with them, and monitoring the level of those resources, and that we're not spending them too fast or inappropriately. Next, the letter I stands for inquisitiveness. This is really a position of curiosity or wonderment. We're always inquiring, we're wanting to understand, we're approaching problems and challenges as opportunities to learn, and ways that we can just study and learn more about something. This also implies that we limit or suspend judging others and their actions and behaviors, and even events that happen, and that we take things at face value for what they are objectively, and we avoid stereotyping them. We start to impose judgments or to appraise people's behavior or events that happen to us from a negative perspective. That's going to increase our stress and put us at a greater risk for burnout. This also includes that we solicit feedback from colleagues that we trust, and from supervisors, and from others, is all part of inquisitiveness. N stands for negotiation. This is our ability to be flexible, to be adaptive, to be solution-oriented, to engage in give and take, and to be responsive and cooperative with others. And I think it's a very essential part to being resilient as well. And then agency is the final letter here, acknowledgement of agency. And this really ties into our motivation, kind of our lifeblood and what drives us and what moves us. It also, taps into aspects of persistence and strength and resourcefulness, and that comes within ourselves, and harnessing that from our colleagues that we work with. It's focused on the positive, and as well as influencing processes and kind of driving outcomes in what we do. So that is S.T.A.M.I.N.A, a nice little acronym that helps me to keep these key wellness principles in mind. And in conclusion here, on the slide, you see an email that I received from a colleague late in the evening, and this colleague is more than available, letting me know deep into the night is available to respond to my email, to have a conversation about a student that I was working with. And here's an opportunity for me to practice selectivity and temporality by not accepting the offer to potentially call this colleague at even 11 p.m. at night, but waiting till the next day to talk to them. Working online creates some new challenges for us compared to working, in a brick and mortar institution. And that is that the boundaries of time can become easily blurred. And so we need to constantly be vigilant with maintaining appropriate work, life, and home balance, and making sure that we don't start slipping into potential practices that might compromise our stamina and overall health and wellness. So with that in mind, I'll turn it over to Dr. Griffin, who will continue and talk about wellness with some Walden policies.
Thank you so much. I'm just amazed at how much we've learned already regarding the 8 dimensions of wellness, and then with stamina. And I was just kind of thinking about how even when you look at those 8 dimensions of wellness, I think about them as kind of categories because they're theme-based, and potentially being out of sync with one of those particular dimensions. And so what we want to do now is help you to look at what's already at your fingertips that can help you. And so with that, we're going to look at some Walden policies. Now, Dr. King and I are both in a role where we have supervisees. So we wanted to make sure that we included some of those kind of supervisor or manager responsibilities, as you may be in that role, or certainly you would have your own manager or supervisor. And so it's also kind of good to know what to potentially expect from them. So one of the things that a supervisor should be doing is to make sure that you're advising supervisees of the availability of the business health services program. And so I know many of you may not be familiar with that term, but I really think about it as our EAP program. But the business health services program is here to help us when we might be out of balance because we're experiencing an issue at work or maybe in our personal lives, and it's beginning to have an impact on our job performance. The faculty within the School of Counseling have what's called KPIs, or key performance indicators. And so there are various points all throughout the term where they're being evaluated and assessed against these areas. And if they fall below a certain threshold or deficit, then that is an indication that something is going on potentially that could be because it's beginning to impact their work performance. And so as a supervisor or an manager, you're supposed to be making your employees or supervisees aware that this program exists as a support for those individuals and or for yourself. There are times where this particular support is not optional. And that's really what that second point is about. Sometimes you may have to enter into a situation where the supervisee is actually required to contact the Business Health Services office. And in those particular situations, before you have that type of communication with the supervisee, you want to make sure that you're in communication with the representative from Human Resources so that they can walk you through to make sure you are operating ethically and within our program standards, as well as kind of legal requirements for compliance. The particular program that I'm talking about, this information is also supported and available to you in our laureate kind of faculty handbook. And so as an employee or as the supervisee, the contact information is an 800 number that's available for you to reach out to that particular office. And they also have a website, which is www.bhsonline.com for com. And so there's two different ways to get in contact with that office. When you make that contact, you would be discussing any of those areas that are beginning to have an impact on your job performance, so that hopefully they can support you in some type of resolution that is a positive benefit, not only to you, but to the university, to everything that you touch and those that you might be in service to. So on our next slide, we're going to really extend beyond these policies into a few more of the benefits. So I talked about how I see the Business Health Services primarily as our EAP, or Employee Assistance Program. And so the first thing that you see on this benefit slide is that you have access to that particular program. And so again, you would make contact in a situation where it's not jeopardizing your work performance. You could make that contact all on your own through the 800 number or through their website. Or if it's gotten to a situation where it is impacting your performance, then the manager or supervisor would require that in communication with the Human Resource Office. One of the things that you've probably seen if you pay attention to what comes through the email is that we have access to a well-being assessment. That well-being assessment is health related, and you answer a series of questions by logging into carefirst.com and visiting the My Health portion of that particular website so that you can access the health assessment. Based on how you answer, then it's going to end up triggering if there are online coaching resources that are available to you, and making basically a recommendation or a suggestion of how to access that particular resource. More recently, one of the things that I noticed is that we now have access to a very well-known gym called Lifetime Fitness, which it has locations all across the country, and we have access to this benefit through a subsidy. So it's a discounted rate. If Lifetime Fitness is in your community, it may be something that you want to explore so that you can work on your physical health, because Dr. King and I are both in the helping profession, and so we know how critical physical health is and has implications for our mental health. We all have access to leave here at the university. So hopefully at the end of the year, you're not one of the persons who's trying to burn all your leave in a short amount of time, but you're cognizant of using that leave all throughout the year so that you don't lose it, so to speak. So we have floating holidays, we have vacation, and we even have paternal leave. We have different periods during the day where we can take breaks. Based on our handbook, that means you're allotted at least 2 15-minute rest breaks per day. And for your lunch period, that can be a minimum of 1/2 hour to a maximum of 1 hour that's available and accessible to you in any given day. And I always strongly encourage people to fully take advantage of this and to actually designate those times, step away from the work, exhale, grab a snack, hydrate, go outside, do something that detaches you from that work environment and experience, because that is key to your wellness. The benefit that is also a part of your breaks is the lactation break. And so for individuals that have children up to 1 year after the birth of a child, an employee who is breastfeeding can be provided reasonable break times to express breast milk. So that's another opportunity and benefit that's available to help balance some of the things that could potentially become out of balance. Currently, Laureate is doing a walking challenge. I've been receiving the emails about signing up. So that's going on right now, and that's just one of many different wellness initiatives that the university affords us the opportunity to be a part of in any given year. And because Laureate and Walden are so grounded in social change, naturally we have a volunteer service benefit that is available to us. And with this particular benefit, you can take up to 24 hours of time each calendar year to participate in specific approved volunteer activities or programs. I mean, who knew? So if you're already out there in the community being the change that you wish to see, then certainly redeem that time because it's available to you as a benefit from your employer. Now we're going to move on to our next slide, which is going to talk about some of the personal strategies that we use that are in addition to what the university provides for us. And so I'm going to cover Dr. April Crable's personal strategies and the strategies of myself before we then look to Dr. King, who will share his strategies with us. So one of the things that I hate about going to a workshop or participating in a conference is that you get really, really excited while you're there. And you always want to leave away with something tangible to help reinforce the potential that you're actually going to use the information. And so this is one of those times where we're trying to give you a tangible resource. And we're not making it up. These are the actual things that we do personally. And so some of those things that Dr. Crable shared, which I referenced previously when I was talking about the breaks benefit that Walden affords us, is that she actually schedules her lunch breaks. So scheduling a lunch break just to make sure you're intentional to take that time away from work and actually stepping away from the computer, turning off notifications, and having lunch or doing something that you choose to do during that time other than working. All of those things are really going to help with wellness. Then one of the things that she does as a strategy is she turns off her Walden cell phone after work hours, because we know if the phone is on, more than likely we're going to be receiving notifications, phone calls, and that ups the potential that you would respond. So turning off that cell phone during the non-work hours. And then just being purposeful and not working while on vacation. I mean, if you set the out of office, then actually adhere to that out of office setting that you've set for yourself. And so those are some of the things that she does. Some of the things that I do is I like to do time blocking. And I do the time blocking on the Outlook calendar, which we have access to. I also use a paper calendar that's a part of a planner or a journal that I have. And sometimes I really prefer the Google Calendar over the Outlook because I think it has a few more bells and whistles and colors that I like more than the colors available in Outlook. But I like to use time blocking with my calendar, whether I'm doing electronic or digital or that hard copy. And what I mean by that is that I actually block off chunks of time to do specific things or to make sure I allocate chunks of time to do specific things. For example, I might allocate a 2-hour block during my work day to work on ongoing projects. I might allocate 1-hour time block to check emails. And then I might allocate 3 hours to work on something that's time sensitive or critical. And so this is very important to me to use the time block because, you know, there's some schools of thought that say that if you don't schedule it, it will not happen or it's less likely to happen. And when you do start scheduling and using a time blocking strategy, you're more than likely to actually fulfill the thing that you set or the purpose that you set that time block or strategy 4. So just wanted to share that as one of my strategies. Another one is called the Pomodoro technique. And you can go to Google to learn more about it, but I really like to pair this particular technique with time blocking. And basically what the Pomodoro technique does is if there's a task that you need to work on, and it takes you about 2 hours, maybe there's a huge spreadsheet that you have to create, populate, and create graphics for to have a product that's ready for a meeting. And on average, that takes you 2 hours. So with the Pomodoro technique, if you were doing that particular project, you would set a timer for 25 minutes, and you would work feverishly in those 25 minutes on that particular task. When that timer goes off, you will take a 5-minute break. Then after the 5-minute break ends, you would set the timer again for 25 minutes, and you would continue to go back and forth between these intervals until that 2-hour time period lasts. And so this is a strategy that really helps people to focus their attention on tasks. Sometimes it's suggested that you use this particular strategy with those things that you're more likely or inclined to put off. And then the last thing that I do is call scheduling. And for call scheduling, I just like to set up actual times where I receive or take calls from students, because I don't want to be broadsided by just picking up the phone when a student calls and they're already prepared for the conversation and the call, and I have no idea what I'm getting ready to hear. And it really takes time to kind of research those issues, be prepared for those issues, and can completely throw off my day. So I've just found that what works for me is to set up a time mutually with the student to do that. And now we're going to hear from Dr. King.
Thank you so much, Dr. Griffin. It's nice to hear just some tangible, practices that we could engage in. So I want to highlight 3 that they're located here in the middle under my name. The first one is boundaries. Miranda's kind of talked about this, but one of the things that I've done for boundaries is I have on my cell phone, I've got my email accounts set up, and I've got my Walden email, and I've got my personal email account. And what I do for the weekends is I go into the mail icon, and I select, instead of having all inboxes, I select it to not include my Walden inbox in the email and just my personal, so that it helps me avoid that temptation that when an email comes in, because they do, a lot of them come in over the weekend, it helps me to set that boundary that I'm not going to respond to it. If I don't see it, out of sight, out of mind, I'm less likely to respond to it. And then when Monday comes around, then I just change my email setting to filter in, that allow the emails from Walden to come in now on my cell phone. That's one way that I've set some boundaries. A second thing that I've done for strategy and wellness is consulting. I've got a variety of colleagues in the profession. Some of them are pretty seasoned in tenure. Others are pretty green and pretty new. And so I've got a variety to choose from based on whatever kind of need or problem or challenge or stressor that I may be encountering. And with these individuals, I try to also respect their health and wellness and to not unnecessarily contact them or overwhelm them with my consulting needs, and always ask them if they have a time to talk, and not just calling them out of the blue, and trying to practice elements of stamina as I interact with others. That consulting has allowed me to relieve stress, to vent and to get frustrations out. It's given me new perspectives, fresh ideas, and it's invigorated me and helped me to reinvest in job tasks and responsibilities. And then finally, hobbies, things that get me out and get me physical. I like to mountain bike. I like to snow ski. I also like to play on the water, especially with my family, including boats, jet skis. We've got a trampoline in the backyard. That's always a good workout. And just playing with my kids and kind of running around the house too is always good exercise. But carving out time for me to do these hobbies and interests kind of gives me my own personal time and my sense of even control over things at times. When I may feel like things at work are out of my control and can increase anxiety and stress, I can find some buffers in some other areas. So we encourage you to just be creative, be resourceful, find what strategies work for you. Most importantly, be flexible and adaptive with those. And be careful to not get locked into a particular strategy, because part of health and wellness is that we are flexible and adaptive and creative with how things change over time in our life. So thank you for allowing me to share that, Dr. Griffin. I'll let you continue on here after I kind of wrap up with talking about some of these other 8 dimensions of wellness that I mentioned earlier, some examples potentially here in these areas. Again, don't feel obligated that you have to do these. These are just potential ideas that Dr. Griffin and I offer to you. You can see under the emotional dimension your own kind of self-care plan, aspects for environmental strategies. I mentioned earlier some of the financial ones, and Walden has, fidelity benefits and consulting that we can take advantage of. And for intellectual, continuing education opportunities, and being aware of a lot of the workshops such as these that are offered by the Center for Faculty Excellence. With occupational, being able to celebrate your work accomplishments and sharing those and being comfortable with sharing those with your colleagues. When I get a presentation acceptance or a publication acceptance, I share that with my supervisor, and I share that with my colleagues. With physical, just getting up and getting active throughout the day, I have found is helpful for me, and not just sitting all the time. And social, I think getting out of the house too, especially because we work in a virtual environment, it's helpful to get out and meet face-to-face with others. And then for spiritual, there's a variety of strategies that we can use to reground ourselves and to relax and to connect, with a higher power, or to enhance our purpose and our meaning in life through various volunteer or meditation practices. So these are just some initial ideas for strategies. Feel free to build upon these and find and enhance what works for you in overall management of stress and promotion of wellness in your life. So with these strategies in mind, I'll let Dr. Griffin then talk about breaking the cycle of imbalance here.
All right, thank you so much. So by now, you've heard several different strategies, resources, and benefits that are at your fingertips. But somewhere in there, you probably also identified ways that you already know that you're out of balance. And so when that occurs, you want to do what's necessary to break that cycle of imbalance. So the Center for Faculty Excellence has a resource that accompanies this particular presentation called Breaking Behavior Chains. And this Breaking Behavior Chains worksheet resource is just available for you to select a wellness-related behavior that you know you want to change. For example, if you're one of those persons who doesn't ever take their lunch break, that's a behavior you want to change. If you're the person that never uses your leave, then you might want to break that cycle. Or you might be that person who's answering emails 7 days a week, 14 plus hours a day. That's something that you want to break. And so you'll utilize this particular worksheet as a supplemental resource to everything that we've talked about today to help you begin to break that pattern of behavior that is not conducive to being imbalanced and well. And so now we're going to look at the next slide, which just really reinforces the particular worksheet on the next slide for breaking behavior cycles. And then after that particular worksheet, you'll be able to look at where within that process you have opportunity to break the chain or to stop the cycle, so to speak. And so when you grab that particular resource, you'll see the specific instructions. You'll think back to today's workshop, and hopefully you'll be able to affect change in your life. On our next slide, We have just provided to you the references that support today's presentation so that you have those there if you should need them. And then on our very last slide, which really is to reinforce the takeaways from today and to provide you with our contact information. If you want to learn a little bit more, need a point clarified, feel free to contact us through the contact information that's available there, just using our first and last name. But on today, we provided you an opportunity to first and foremost visually see yourself as a cup, and recognizing when your cup is not full, when it's empty, and ways that you can keep it filled or to a sustainable level. We then began to look at and expose you to the 8 dimensions of wellness and introduce you to some signs and symptoms where you might have work-life imbalance. And while doing so, we then paired our Walden benefits as strategies that you can begin to use and leverage to help with your own wellness or the wellness of those you might supervise. Lastly, we provided to you some of our practical and tangible strategies to couple with the resources and benefits that are available to you. We even took the 8 dimensions of wellness and paired a strategy with each dimension so that you had additional ideas of how to utilize them and to take ownership of them. And so those are the different things that we have covered today. We hope that this has been extremely beneficial for you and that you will not stop here on your path to wellness. Thank you.